Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here yet again on the wonderful Rusty Chains for the second stream today. And this time we're joined by Ulf Andersson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm currently working, so I'm great actually.
We'll try not to distract you too much.
It's fine. It's fine.
So, you're working at 10 Chambers, your new studio, and can you talk a bit to our fancy viewers about what's going on over there, what projects you may have at the moment?
We're currently working on a cooperative FPS, like I guess last time, and every time I've wanted to create a project, it's been a cooperative game from I don't know, when I started out making games basically, yeah, we ended up doing that again, which is fun. I mean, you always have something to improve, and felt like there's still room to make some really cool stuff. And we're sort of going down the more hardcore route, you could say, at least compared to a lot of the cooperative shooters coming out, because it feels like it's sort of becoming a very sort of mainstream type of game. Like the whole cooperative sort of genre just a couple of years ago was sort of a very small part of games, and now it's sort of growing into this big thing. And we still think that before it sort of goes all mainstream, there's a lot of stuff you can do with just like smaller, more focused teams working together. So that's where we want to be, basically. And it's thematically it's more leaning towards horror action, or action horror. So it's not a heist game, that's for sure.
That's very cool. I definitely agree that there's a lot of games coming out recently, especially in co-op, and for lack of a better term, they're trying to appeal to the more casual audience.
Yeah.
And obviously there's nothing wrong with those types of games, but of course it's always good to have a more kind of challenging experience for those people that seek it as well.
Yeah. It really depends on why you're making games. Is it because you want to sell like tons of copies? If that's the goal, like the only goal you have, just sell as much as you can, or if it's just making something that's fun to play, and then and that appeals to you, I guess, as a developer. And if it's good enough, if you like it, hopefully enough people will buy it, and that's sort of our point of view. Like, we want to make something that's really that we enjoy playing, because most of us have made a lot of games over the years and been in the business for a very long time. So it's we can't just do another game. We gotta make something that we really feel like making.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful philosophy, to just have something that you definitely would want yourself.
Yeah. Well, tell me that in a couple of years when I'm jamming DLCs down your throat, man.
As long as you want us to have the DLC.
I'm kidding.
If you want it, we want it, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, I guess you could call me old school. I prefer just large expansion packs, few and far between, to just spamming lots of small stuff.
Yeah. Well, the whole DLC culture and the early access culture and all that is sort of it's a very big mix of different agendas and different types of developers, you may say.
Yeah.
It feels like people aren't releasing polished projects anymore. It's just like they leave the whole sort of. It's almost like you're paying for a beta or even alpha in some cases. And I understand that to some extent for like small indie teams or inexperienced teams. That's fine. Like, you know, if the price is okay and it's not like a $60 thing or a $30 thing, it's okay. But like when it's you know, in the end, shit product that you're selling for like full price, and you know, also developers who never deliver on their promise of completing the actual you know, project, that sort of burns the whole industry, I think, and it's sort of,
Especially for those who have Kickstarter or crowdfunded their games,
Yeah.
it makes those kind of games look kind of like they've failed entirely as a genre.
yeah, it's a shame really, because it felt like it was moving in a direction where the bridge between developer and gamer sort of was closed, you know, where you can actually interface with people and you can have them trust you early on and sort of support your
Truly
project.
sad.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go in and sort of sell out to a publisher to get the money, because then the project will be controlled by somebody who has a very different agenda compared to you as a developer. I mean, usually, I mean, there's publishers with other agendas, of course, or different cultures, but most of the time it turns into a cooperative, or not a cooperative, a corporate thing pretty fast. So the whole sort of crowdfunding thing and an early access thing was like a big potential, I think, that's almost been lost now.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
so
one
that's-
game, I think it was the Stomping Grounds. It came out a few years ago, and the crowdfunding turned out to be a disaster for that game. I remember the developer did one update and then just dropped the game entirely.
yeah, that's just sad, man.
Yes.
You don't know the whole story, of course. I mean, I'm sure in some cases there's like, you know, the team hit some issues or, you know, something really bad happened. But like, you know, it's in the end, it's people get burnt, and that sort of affects how they buy stuff or how they interface with developers, and that's just very sad. But it's hard to. I think it's up to people to not buy into, you know, everything.
Not buy into hype, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every bunch
it's
has
cool.
its bad apples.
I guess so. So we're gonna try to at least release something that's as tight as we can, and then we'd rather sort of strip down on features than try to like overpromise and under deliver, you know. So yeah. But yeah, I'm the sort of the same regarding DLC. I sort of enjoy the bigger ones. Small ones if they're free, you know. But
Yeah.
I don't buying hats for like $1. That's not my. It sort of turns into. Well, it turns out we've joked about that for another streams, but it sort of goes from microtransactions to macro transactions, and that's just.
Yeah.
You're paying a lot, you know,
Right.
every day or all the time, you know.
It builds up over time, especially in games where it's like, I just got this amazing hat, but wait. For $2, you can get the same hat but green.
Yeah,
Maybe
but it's
3 you can get it.
it's using the skill of a great game designer to hook you on certain things, and it's using that to get you to pay, you know, even more.
Right.
And that's just, it's a very evil thing, you know. It's people who actually know how to play with your psyche, you know, like a movie director, but they're able to get you to pay, you know, very, like all the time, because you think you want to, but in the end the game is really just tricking you into wanting to buy stuff. Of
Right.
course there's really good DLC and there's really good like expansions, and I'm sure there's awesome micros in some games, but I'm talking in general.
Right.
It feels like we sort of drifted off topic. I'm an expert at drifting off topics, so yeah.
Now don't worry about it. Twitch chat right now is absolutely loving hearing all of this and your perspective on everything. So
I don't mind listening to someone else talk for a change. My own voice gets kind of stale. So does John's.
a little bit, yeah. And Simon Vickland, he apparently popped up in our chat for a few minutes just now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he told me he would tune in.
And we were talking to him last week, and he mentioned an interesting kind of structure that Ten Chambers has, in that everyone's more on equal footing than traditional developers. Can you speak to that at all, or?
Yeah, sure. It's basically where we try to have a very flat structure, but we have, of course, a creative sort of chain of command or whatever. Yeah, you have a hierarchy, but it's basically to get shit done, because you can't get stuff done if it's just like always flat. But we have this system that we're trying out where it's based on ownership, basically. So if you own something, you're able to carry that thing quite far. And of course, sometimes it fails, and sometimes you gotta sort of rope it back in and stuff like that. But so one of those ownerships is, of course, like the direction of the game or something like that. So that's also one guy doing that, of course, me in this case. So my job is to keep everything basically on rails, and that sort of drifts into being almost a producer sometimes too. But it's more like a production design thing, in a bit of direction. But yeah, so it's fairly flat, and then we have an equal share in royalties. So it's supposed to be a very you're supposed to be able to argue your thing without being afraid of losing your job, or having somebody boss you around, basically, as much as possible, to sort of use all the creative talent and all the skill sets of the team, and also create a very pleasant working environment, basically. Not stress-free in any shape or form. I mean, there's you got to deliver on your stuff, and you got to live up to what the other guys expect from you, basically. But other than that, it's a very calming experience for most people, I think. But we'll see if it works. I mean, it's so far it's been working out fairly well. We've had our snags, but because of that structure and because of the friendship in the team, we can talk about most stuff. So we sort of solve most issues, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, it can be sort of a ball and chain sometimes, because I'm used to a more direct sort of line of control. But I think in general, it's always good to have people around you that can tell you to fuck off, basically. Because you're wrong all the time, and you just gotta iterate on everything, and it's always good to be in that sort of flat structure. Also, the team is it's not really limited to 10 guys, but we're gonna try to keep it at 10 as much as possible. And that's because it's very hard to have meetings above 10 people, basically. It's a very good size for like a creative group to be, being 15, or even, at around 20-25, you start losing track of what people's hobbies are. You got to be. That's where I want to be. I want to know everybody in the team and so forth. So it's a very sort of personal style of just being 10 guys, I guess. But I'm sure we're going to be 15. And I'm gonna have to eat my hat, but it's just I think it's a very healthy reminder trying to stay at 10, you know. All the companies I've been part of have. I started Grin in my basement, basically, at my parents' house, and I grew into, I think, with consultants and everything, and we were about somewhere in between 260 or, yeah, to 300, I think.
Quite a big jump.
So it sort of blows up. But that was over, 12 years almost. So that sort of blew up into this big thing, and I lost track of what I wanted to do. Like, I was in meetings, talking about having a meeting after a while, and it sucks the life out of you, and you sort of lose perspective on life, and you lose how you sort of see people and the value of people a lot, because you start treating them as numbers after a while, because, well, I think that's that sort of defensive mechanism that most people employ if you're not like a sociopath, which I think a lot of CEOs are actually in the end. But maybe that's like a fitting job for them. They usually do that kind of job very good too. If you're a sociopath and know it, you should aim to be like a CEO or something, I think. Enough about that. I think I've answered the question, by the way, because now I'm just going to drift into the next fucking area.
If you want us to just dip into the pool we've got from Reddit, we can do that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Shoot.
One that came up a few times between the collective on Reddit and Steam was, are you going to do any voice acting in the new game, or is that behind you?
I ended up doing voice acting for Payday for a bunch of different reasons, but it started most out as a sort of temporary thing before we got real actors in. But then it was really hard to find somebody who could scream like I did, and the game sort of needed that urgency, and a lot of people sort of liked that, so it sort of stuck with the game. I can't act much, but I can scream my ass off. Like that's my claim to fame. And I don't. It's something me and Simon have talked about, is that the fact that like voice actors, they live using their voice, so they can't destroy the voice. Because they're gonna do like this, commercial the day after or whatever, and I didn't have that, so I could just scream until I bled, and then I could just wait a week and do the next session. So I think that was my not living as as having the profession as a voice actor sort of helped me in that role, I think. But to answer your question, I think as I don't have it as a goal, and I don't think some people in the team actually wants me to have both, the voice in the game and likeness and everything. But I don't I see the project more as it needs to be perfect for the project. I'm not going to try to squeeze myself into that thing. But we have a bunch of, creatures or monsters and stuff in this game, so I'm probably going to do a bunch of the horror stuff at least. Again, with screaming, I think I can at least deliver on that part. So, but we'll see. You never know. You might be looking at a new wolf somewhere, but we'll see.
So you say you have these... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
You say you have these monsters and creatures in your horror game. Is there going to be like a sci-fi element to it, or is that more kind of like supernatural, I guess?
It's hard. It's very hard to describe, and I'm not gonna, spoil anything. But it has some sci-fi elements in it. It does. It has some futuristic stuff, and it's not a fantasy game or anything like that. So, but it's still very sort of contemporary. It's grounded in a believable sort of realistic world, even though it's skewed in a lot of ways. But it yeah, we're just trying to make something different and a different experience, and hasn't really been experienced in cooperative, because some choices are really hard, and we're still sort of struggling to get that stuff right. But yeah, and we sort of needed that horror element to sort of get it all, sort of glue it all together, you could say. And then we have a very specific story that needed that too, so it sort of aligned. And there's a bunch of gameplay stuff that I wanted to make, and the other guys too, for that sake, or for that. But it's yeah, and so we needed sort of a sci-fi twist, or a sort of a horror or unreal sort of enemy design to be able to pull off certain gameplay elements, you could say. Because the contemporary stuff is really good in many ways, but it's very limited at the same time. So we're trying to keep like the best of both worlds, you could say.
Very interesting. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, me too.
Alright, I'm gonna dip into a Reddit here. Oh, this is a good one. Can you guys talk at all about what game engine you're building this in?
I can't right now, but we're probably gonna roll that out pretty soon.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's not that it's sensitive. It's just like a question of if somebody wants to do some marketing or whatever. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so it's nothing big, or it's just that yeah, I've promised to just hold on to that a tad more.
Okay.
Yep.
So, this is a really interesting one. Are you familiar with the Reddit user Swedish Action Hero?
yeah. The cosplayer guy?
Yeah. Something that's popped up quite a bit in our Reddit collection
Yeah.
is, how do you feel about him, and how do you feel knowing someone's put so much effort into creating something based off of you and your appearance?
It's of course very cool, but it's also very, I wouldn't say weird, but like scary, because somebody's spending a lot of time trying to look like me, or trying to be like a character that I voiced, or there's similarities, of course, and it's a bit scary, and I guess a bit like weird and freaky, but you can't do anything else than appreciate it, because it's very cool at the same time. It's very, very cool. I'd like to meet that guy someday. It'd be very interesting.
Who can shout louder?
Yeah. Well, I think he almost looks more like Wolf than I, but I'm gonna try to beat him on the screaming part. But it's really cool. I mean, I don't know how many hours he spent on his gear, but it's really impressive.
Yeah, it's really high quality, I guess.
Yeah, when you make a game, you can only hope for people like that to really,
receive it,
dive
to
into
want to
it,
look
and
like it.
yeah, really appreciate what you've done, in a sense. It's really cool. It's really cool. I've seen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, never mind.
Someone's asking, were there any challenges you've overcome in your development past from a technical aspect that you're using that experience now to just kind of breeze past something that would have been a hurdle earlier in your career?
I think there's tons of that stuff, and it's getting, with every year it's harder to see, stuff that you take for granted sort of in your professional life. I think that goes for everybody, but like you sort of do stuff automatically. You take certain decisions, and it could be hard for people who don't share your experience, or in a different area, to understand what you're doing. But luckily, like the 10 Chambers guys, like most of them understand what I say, and I understand what they say, which is not that common. But actually, that I get my point across without, at least not that quickly, because I can be a bit, I don't know, it's hard to understand sometimes. But it's, yeah, I think there's tons of technical stuff. Like there's of course skill, and there's experience from just designing a bunch of games. I don't know how many games I've done so far, from demos to actual games, but I think it's well above 10 released games. But yeah, demos, I don't know. It's probably like 50 or something. But I think you learn the most from like shit projects, actually. Stuff that you failed because you really look at them and say, like, why did we fail? Or you know exactly why you failed. But both of those results sort of teach you a lot, The successful games, it's so easy to get hubris or something like that, and say, I'm the best game designer who ever lived, and then you don't actually understand why it's good, and you see that in designers a lot, actually, and musicians too, I think, where it's like they made it's like a one-hit wonder thing,
This is the thing you also see in doctors, actually, from what I've heard from professors who get one or two diagnoses correct, and they'll just suddenly start diagnosing everything as almost the same thing for at least a few hours until someone hits on them and corrects them for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's very scary.
Yeah, but it's scary when you see 8 cases of strep throat in an hour.
Yeah. It has to be but that's more like a life and death situation. My job is...
walks in with a broken knee. You have strep throat, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, my job isn't really like an important one. I just make fun shit, I guess. Yeah. I'm not killing people.
Yet.
Or trying to heal them and failing, at least. Yeah, I guess I answered your question somewhat. Yeah.
Something that's floating around our Twitch chat right now a bit is the name of the person who's writing the story for your upcoming game. Is that name out there, and what might it be? People are interested in finding out your writing team on this endeavor.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it in the last stream we were in, but it was a fairly I don't know if people picked up on that, but it's basically me and Simon writing it right now.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Yep. We've done a bunch of story stuff before together, and written tons of stuff together, so it's not like a new thing for us, but it's I think at least it's a new way of seeing people get to see Simon's skill set in not only music. He's a very talented designer and story guy too. I think that is sort of what we're trying to achieve on the 10 Chambers stuff, is also the sort of multi-talent, trying to get like a multi-talent crew. So most of the guys are people I've worked with over the years. That has a lot of different skill sets, or they don't yet. that some people who have a lot of potential developing certain skills, and we're sort of trying to get them to develop those skills at the same time. So it's a lot of that happening too. A lot of chances being taken with people, but it's fun, you know. It's fun as long as very creative, as long as you learn stuff. So we're trying to sort of incorporate that into the culture of the company.
Yeah. It's really cool hearing about this kind of just how can we make this fun and how can we make this quality philosophy, especially in like the industry today, which is dominated by, now what if we do this as DLC later?
Yeah.
You know, like
How much money can we make?
for example, Ground Zeroes from Metal Gear. You know, it's like, what if we cut out the first 3 hours of the game and sell it as an earlier prequel game, you know?
For about half the price.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know their sort of why they did that actually, but I mean I can guess, but I think that specific project has been plagued by delays, so I think that was just trying to sort of get some money back from the project. At the same time, it feels sort of sad to see, and especially when Hideo had to leave, like they sort of earned tons of cash from those projects over the years, and it feels like having that argument of running out of money on Metal Gear, I think it's not a valid one. So I think there was other sort of agendas at work there at the office, but it's just guessing, you know.
Yeah.
But it's sort of, I mean, those projects are always, I mean, Metal Gear is always successful. He can't really, he's too good to fail, in my opinion. I mean, he might do some stuff that's not like super good, but at the same time, there's most of those things are because he tries really hard to make something different, you know. And that's, you have to applaud that, you know. And most of his work is awesome. So it's, you know, I can't really see why they did that. First release the other than some agenda, I mean, because yeah, it's. But you never know. You know, sometimes you run out of cash. I mean, we might too. So we might be releasing some half-assed free to play in the end, but that's not the goal in any way. And we're gonna try really hard to not disappoint. You know.
Mm-hmm. Next from Reddit, I'm guessing.
If you have one from chat, we can read one from chat. But I'm gonna.
I haven't seen much other than questions about the giveaways.
Oh. That's what it's all about, right?
That's what we're here for.
Giveaways. Giveaways. Yeah.
So, there's two questions here from this one person. Both are kind of interesting to me. The first one is, a few Overkill developers have recently said on weekends they like to just all go to one person's house and watch Game of Thrones. Do you guys have something similar? You do it? 10 Chambers.
Socializing events.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we have a restaurant we go to a lot.
That's always fun.
We have we got this thing we try to, for each new member, we went to a very specific like restaurant and had a very specific table every time just to sort of celebrate. But that I guess that's over now. So there was just in the beginning. Other than that, we just eat lunch at a very good restaurant. But we don't spend like much of our free time with each other. We have families and we have.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you need that break, and we try to avoid crunching too much and isolating us inside the team too much. Because I've seen that so many times, where the company sort of isolates itself and becomes this island of.
Yes, it happens more than just gaming industry. Like almost every industry
definitely,
breaks.
Yeah. So I think you should try to have a very social sort of environment at work instead, and then try to, you can call each other, and you can, a lot of people, we have very flexible working hours, so you end up, Skyping with people during the night or, in the evening, or a phone call here and there, because people keep thinking about, what to do next. And most of the time, most people at 10 Chambers are very sort of engaged in the project and very focused on that. And we're talking about work most of the time, so we don't spend too much time together. Me and Simon, though, we play a lot of Destiny. That's what we do.
From a PS4, isn't it?
Yeah, PS4. Yeah.
Damn console I don't have.
Yeah.
Worm your way in, dude.
Maybe trying to worm my way out of the Xbox.
The second question from... Oh, sorry.
Yep. No, never mind.
The second question from that same Reddit user was, what kind of art style are you guys going for? Something cel-shaded, high poly count, super realistic?
Right now, it's I'd say very realistic looking, to the limits of a small team, So we're trying to really find like an art style that can hit, where you can be scared, and you can deliver on the horror elements, and where you can deliver on excellent feedback, some blood and gore and all of that nice stuff. But it's pretty hard with a smaller team to deliver something that's up to par with the Drake fortunes out there. So I'm sure, we're going to have a tweaked style in some way, but it's going to be very close to like having a realistic or very believable environment. What I do know is we're going pretty hardcore on the lighting direction, so that's going to have a very specific style to it. So lighting and colors and stuff like that, you'll see something that you, I guess, don't expect from a horror game. But we'll see if we make that happen. But that's the goal right now, and I think it's looking very promising. Just like this, just from last week to now, it's looking very, very promising. So we'll see.
This is a really interesting question that just popped up in chat. As someone that's been kind of bouncing around the gaming industry for a while now, do you have any advice for someone who's looking to enter the industry, and if there's ways to go about doing it, or if you just have to kind of get a feel for it and hope you fall into something?
Since I've never had like a real job myself, I've only run my own companies all the time, right? So I haven't really worked for anyone except for as a third-party developer for publishers like Ubisoft and stuff like that. So it's still sort of working for somebody, but still not. But I've had a lot of employees, so I guess I have some experience. But I think in general, something that people don't do enough is modding games. I think it's like the oldest tip, and I think that tip is maybe overused, but it still holds water today. I think like learning how other people make stuff is like the key to learning how to make stuff. Instead of reading about it or having a teacher tell you, or reading like some Gamma Sutra article about how to make stuff. That's all fine and good, but like making it yourself, like making a level, or starting to just like pick apart Half-Life 2, or something that's fairly open. Just rip it apart and try to focus on the area that you're interested in, and I'm sure you're going to find new areas that sort of are more interesting than you think right now. Like I started doing sort of oil painting and art stuff, and then went into 3D like art and 2D art stuff, and then ended up as a programmer most of the time. So in 10 Chambers, I'm doing design and direction and stuff like that, and then mostly program, like network code and stuff like that. So you sort of drift into different areas and just learning as many crafts as possible until you find that one thing, or you just get really good at a lot of stuff, Mm-hmm. If you look at Valve's recruitment, they have like sort of this paper of what they want their employees to be. Have you read that? Any?
I have not. No.
No, it's fairly interesting because they have this sort of idea of an employee being very good at one thing, but extremely like broad. So they should be able to program. They should be able to do art. They should be able to do basically everything, but be very good at one specific area, and the only way to get there is actually self-improvement and self-learning. So just like pick apart games, pick the best games you can ever, pick apart, and just go about your business doing that forever until you're good enough. A short way in, I think, is like modding games that are made by developers you'd like to work at, and doing it so like learning their technology to the point where they gotta hire you,
like making a mod to something that the players want in the base game so much they're willing to hire you to make it just on its own.
Yeah. I mean, it's happened at Starbreeze, so it's
and Bethesda.
A lot.
And I mean, even like community management and that kind of stuff you're making or doing right now. Like there's a lot of areas to game industry that's not only like actual development. Depends on the size of the companies, and if you're going for like big publishers, they have a lot of different types of work. Even if you're like an analyst, you can work in the gaming business. Like you can, like I think there's work for everyone, but it's at the same time maybe work not for everyone, I'd say, because it could be very grueling work, and you don't like the problem is it's like an office type job, right? You're only handling stuff that doesn't exist. So you could pass like 2 years of your life and you don't know what the fuck you've done, because you don't have any evidence. You don't have physical evidence. You're not building a wall or anything. So it's just it could be very depressing, especially if you fail on making a project. You haven't really done anything. You haven't built like half a wall. It's just nothing. But you can, of course, if you're into like self-improvement, you will always learn something from every project. Like I said before, you learn the most from the failed ones. So sort of you have to build your own castle in your head, I guess. Not like grueling, as in, I'm not comparing it to like digging ditches or being a soldier or anything. Games aren't really a real job, so I'm taking that for granted. But after like 20 years doing this, it sort of takes a toll on mind, I think. At least mine.
Going back to what you were mentioning earlier about Valve and their policy on people that have like a broad range and also people that just learn developers' technology.
Yep.
Are you familiar with their whole Team Fortress 2 community update system that they've activated recently?
No, I'm not. Please
It's
fill
very
me in.
interesting to me. The way it works is Valve basically says if you can get maybe 10 people working on something in our engine and make X amount of items and send it all to us, and we will show it off, and if there's a high interest for it, we will implement it as an official update with you guys getting all the credit. So they've got this neat system of kind of backing their community creators, not necessarily making them employees, but at the same time helping them get that recognition and get their content into the game officially, which I think is very interesting.
So it's sort of a tweak on the paid mods thing that sort of really failed. Flopped. But it sounds cool. A sort of a moderated version of that, I guess. Yeah. I like that stuff. It's very interesting. Like we've talked a lot about that. Actually, we designed the game for the game we're making now. That was more towards that sort of area. But we decided against it for the first game we make because we want to focus on sort of the core gameplay values for this one. And just honing down on getting everything right, the FPS stuff and the whole sort of experience down. So we didn't want to spend any time on making, the game moddable or anything like that. So that's probably going to be our next game, sort of more towards that area, because it's a very nice place to be, and I think it's if you do it right, it could be tons of fun, for us and for the players, if it's really sort of incorporating the modding aspect of the community. Especially if you can get money thrown around. I think that gives people incentive,
Yeah.
And it's fair too. I think if you do the work, you should get paid for it. If it's good enough, that is.
You're not just gonna like paint a cardboard box and say, "I'll take $400, please."
Well, nobody's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
But it's.
We'll never underestimate modern art,
I guess somebody.
Don't overestimate it either, though.
If it's just one box, there's only one. That's like a DLC only one guy can buy. That'd be awesome.
First come, first serve.
Yeah, a $600 payday mask.
That'd have to be one really badass mask, though.
Yeah, I guess so. Or just
not necessarily. People will buy anything, as referenced by the golden frying pan in Team Fortress 2 for $5,000.
There's just that whole completionist aspect.
There's one of those?
Yeah.
There's a golden frying pan.
Yes.
And for
$500
$500
during the Man vs. Machine mode, and the first one that appeared sold for around $5,000 on the market.
Oh my god.
For $5,000, you can bludgeon the people the same way as everyone else, but you can look better than everyone doing it,
That's just... Yeah.
Something I've always found fascinating is video game community markets.
I just don't understand stuff.
Especially how some of them have higher rates of inflation than most global economies.
Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous in some
cases. John, I forgot I was playing Payday for a second, and I thought I was playing Siege. With, Fuse. Sorry, I was distracted by something in the game.
We have to put on a show to keep keeps the video feed going, so we're just kind of running around
doing whatever
shooting stuff. Yeah.
process.
People are asking, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying before, you know, the whole either be very good at one thing or cover a whole array category. Do you recommend one of those over the other? You know, is it just like take one type of art class or learn every medium? You know, is it better to be just fantastic at one thing or just good at many things?
Many things. It really is something you gotta explore. You know, I think the key is trying a bunch of different things. You know, and see what sort of sticks. If it's fun to do, you usually learn a lot faster. And the thing you think is fun to do is probably not the thing you thought you would sort of enjoy. And if you already know, just focus on that. I mean, there's great sort of need for both those people. Like if you're really broad or if you're really, really talented in one thing, or both, you know. Preferably both, but there's few and far between those type of people, and you can't sort of say, okay, I'm gonna learn every medium and then I'll get a job, because then that's just 20 years down the line. But just try a bunch of stuff, you know, make a level, make a model, do some texturing, you know, try your hand at different things, and just try to understand why games are made like they are, and play games, but try to play them and analyze everything and try to figure out why they took certain decisions, you know?
Why some things work, why some don't.
Yeah, exactly. If you play a game that's bad, that's really helpful, because you can say, why is this FPS bad compared to this FPS, which is good, you know? You know, you should have tons of respect for games that are really good. Like there's like Modern Warfare 1 and 2, for example, two really good games. Now, depending on your taste in gaming, you could say like, oh, it's not my kind of game. Yeah, sure, but the quality across the board in those games are extremely high. Just looking at that and saying, okay, find like a bad FPS and then compare it to that one, and just dig through that and figure out why it's good and bad. That's it. Like I said, that's the start of a game designer career right there. Game design is basically problem solving and understanding how to reuse what other people have invented to your favor in the design you're trying to make right now. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily copying stuff, but like understanding why it works, basically. I usually refer to it as toolboxing. Basically, you create like a toolbox from a certain game or a movie or whatever, and you take that sort of toolbox, and you can apply it. If you understand it well enough, you can apply it to any game, basically. If you understand the psychology behind it, or why it works, why it's, you know, why the feedback is awesome. Like if you play Peggle, you know, and ask yourself why Peggle is so good, because it's really good. Like you feel good when you actually, you know, complete one puzzle in Peggle. It's really good.
It's so simple, but it's still somehow very high quality.
But if you look at like the feedback and you look at the fireworks and just before the fireworks, or when the ball almost hits a Peggle or whatever it's named, and so forth. There's so many layers of good like feedback stuff that you can actually apply to like an FPS or a third person or a strategy game or whatever. It's just a matter of understanding why they work, you know. Mm-hmm. I spent tons of time in my life just like recording games and then stepping through them, you know, frame by frame, to analyze like, why is this platformer better than that platformer? Like, and it could be a difference of like, oh, the jump is when he lands, there's a 1 frame difference, or like, why is this weapon so good in CS and why is this weapon not good in CS? Then just like record everything and then analyze everything, from like, from effects to sounds to animation to controller to aim, spreading, recoil, everything.
Yeah.
It's just taking it very seriously and really, really digging into it. A lot of people think they're complete, whereas I'm a really good designer. I can make really good stuff, which is all fine and good. Like you gotta have a bit of moxie or whatever you call it. Like you gotta be a bit of a diva to be able to direct people in general, or at least be able to sort of switch that on. But just being very humble and towards what because usually the more you know, the more you understand you don't know anything, basically, because it's just the rabbit hole goes deeper.
Yeah,
I can't imagine like Sid Meier or somebody like that. I'm sure he feels the same way. Just you keep digging, and then I don't consider myself in that sort of league of designers in any shape or form. Like I can make some good stuff, but I'm not in that sort of caliber of a designer yet. Hopefully I'll get there someday, but time will tell.
So you were talking a bit about kind of dissecting games and going through step by step. So with the stuff you guys do at 10 Chambers, will we eventually see, Steam Workshop for mods then, or like the SDKs going out there like a lot of games do?
Mm-hmm. Could you? I don't understand the question. Could you repeat? Yeah.
There's, for example, Killing Floor 2. They say
yeah.
if you own the game, you can tick this little box on Steam, and then you have like our map assets, and you can create your own kind of.
But that's modding. That's modding right there. Just do great stuff. I think that's if you're able to, it's a very cool gesture and a very cool thing. If you buy a project or you buy a game and then you get some more stuff, that you can dig through, and you can
tools with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I started. I started editing Doom. That's like my first 3D game experience, and then I moved into Quake and Quake World, making models for that and maps and stuff. So, I mean, that's sort of my point. Like, there's all that stuff is out there, and I think people should, if they're interested in getting into the business, that's a very good way of doing it. Of course, there's also schools now, and you can do that too. But I think you should combine those two. That's probably the best way of doing it. And if you can find somebody to pay for the whole thing, that's even better. If somebody wants to see my first Doom map, not gonna happen.
Oh, I'm intrigued now.
Curious.
Intrigued? What?
First Doom is in way early, or something is in the snap maps?
Oh, no. Hi, I'm not making any snap maps soon. No, it's probably. I mean, I started with the first Doom, the first Doom.
The one back on DOS or whatever.
Yeah. It was fun.
It's amazing how well that game still holds up, and how that game is still, active and has an active community.
Yeah, but it's still one of the better shooters, actually. Doom is still really nice. Like, there's some, of course, it's old as fuck. Yeah, but there's some feedback stuff, and especially level design stuff that's still
top dog for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right. like, obviously I'm no professional, but to me, level design is all about understanding the mechanics of how your game works and incorporating them in. You know, you have maybe the aesthetic choices, but you build the levels around the mechanics. At least that's how it seems logical to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like that's probably a very good, or like that's a very good it's a way of seeing it. Then of course you can layer on top of that. You got storytelling and and blah blah blah. And I think a lot of games actually make that like a bad choice is to make like you got gameplay and then you got story and then you got gameplay and then you got story, while the good ones sort of overlap, so you can't tell. Also trying to hide and reinvent your mechanics. So you sort of know what to do, but you get surprised. You're not throwing like a wrench in the controller scheme where you're like, how the fuck do I do this? And you got to do a tutorial, because that's usually shit, in my opinion. But where it's like you sort of reimagine the same mechanic into something else,
Yeah.
So the actual game doesn't really have a lot of mechanics, but the levels sort of diversify the whole experience. I think that's a very those are the best level designs in general. And then of course you got deathmatch level design, which is just a completely different beast. It's a very different thing. That's the whole game right there.
Yeah, the type of level you're designing has to reflect the mechanics as well as what this level is going to accomplish. It's like, is the player trying to get from point A to B here, or are they trying to just survive against other players, and players who have varying degrees of skills with the mechanics as well? There's all these different layers to it.
Yeah. It's true that.
Someone in chat says they disagree that not all tutorials are bad, just there's a few. There are more than some. There's quite a few terrible ones out there, but then there's kind of the wittier ones, like, for example, Far Cry Blood Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
That tutorial, I think, is very well done because, yeah, you have to play the tutorial, but throughout the entire time, the main character's like, are you kidding? This is basic stuff. Why do we have to do this? Like, it's totally self-aware of itself.
Yeah. But then they made it into something like a gimmick, like a funny thing, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, there's good tutorials, but in general, I just want to dive into a game, and I think the game itself can tell, show you what to do. If it's not like a really advanced, strategy game and shit like that, then you really need that tutorial, I guess. But I think really good games sort of pull it off and step you through the experience and the controller and everything without you noticing,
A lot of the fun can just come from, discovering the mechanics on your own and discovering how to combine them on your own and just getting creative with how that works.
That's one of my favorite things about the Valve game series Portal. They sort of hint at what the game mechanics are, but let you discover them on your own.
Yeah, and that becomes sort of... Yeah.
Which is at least integrated well.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's always good ones. Most of them suck. I fucking hate them. I hate them.
Ones too.
Yeah. Like having a good progression and not just like dumping all the fucking features in the player's lap. That's of course needed. But like tutorializing everything and like, pause. This is how you assassinate somebody. I hate that stuff. It just pulls me out of the experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
as far as least favorite tutorials for me that could have been implemented well, were good ideas but weren't. The Space Engineers tutorial was kind of very off-putting, where you click on the tutorial button in-game, and it immediately opens the Steam overlay, takes you to a YouTube video.
why?
You don't even get to actually experiment with the game mechanics along with some sort of announcer. It's just, oh hey, I'm gonna show you how everything's done.
There's a
Time
lot
saver.
of games that do that nowadays, and I don't know. That just doesn't sit well with me. Because games are supposed to be interactive, and that takes away that layer, especially at the most basic point of the whole game as well.
Yeah.
So is it safe to say your game's not going to have many tutorials then?
No, not many. Hopefully completely free of them.
A whole, like, 10-minute cutscene. Okay, this is how you kill the first enemy you see.
I think if you're put in a situation where you gotta sort of an urgent situation enough, you're gonna figure that shit out pretty fast. Especially if you've played any FPS, stuff.
Yeah.
Then
Controls
you're
for FPS tend to meld together.
Standardized.
yeah. You should be able to pick that stuff up pretty fast.
It's more the mechanics you gotta figure out than how.
Yeah.
Please don't make it like Metal Gear Solid 5's where it goes on for a solid 45 minutes.
Interweaved with an hour of cutscenes, of course.
Yeah.
Now cutscene, and now you gotta learn how to see another cutscene.
With some credits in it that may spoil a couple characters for you.
Yeah.
You get to hold forward on the stick for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Don't
so-
let go, this all starts over.
Wait, really?
I don't know.
That'd be terrible.
No, there's none in Metal Gear. What are you doing, John?
The objective.
Doesn't sound like it.
But, yeah, there's a lot to be said about how far you want to take games, and that goes back to the whole casual versus hardcore thing.
I know.
There's the casual, quote-unquote, audience that's not maybe familiar with shooters. They don't have, shift to sprint, WASD to move, mouse to look. That's not always ingrained in everyone's mind. But at the same time, you don't want to spend too much time pandering to them, as opposed to the people that are like, okay, I've been doing this for, a decade at this point, just let me rock.
Yeah, exactly. It's where I think the community is big enough to be able to sort of, if you're talking about, risks and investments, I mean, because it's directly linked to the decisions of trying to go mainstream and stuff like that. And if you can count your money back and sort of be fairly safe that you can make another project, you can be happy with that, I think, and then you can make something that's more geared toward players who know how to play,
Mm-hmm.
without being like super hardcore. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be, so hard you can't complete it, but you don't have to. I don't want to play another tutorial telling me how to look up and down or do it,
Right. Maybe not necessarily Dark Souls level where it's like, we want you to die 30 times before you progress, but at the same time...
Dark Souls isn't really necessarily a hard game. It's just, oh hey, make sure you memorize everything because any mistake will really ruin
you. Yeah, that game is designed around trial and error.
It's just not like someone picking up the DayZ standalone for the first time and not even knowing the control mapping.
Yeah. But apparently, I mean, it's a large enough crowd that love that stuff. Because I mean, they keep making the games and they keep improving them. And I think they've sort of developed their own sort of style now, where they actually know exactly what they're doing and they're improving on it. I think the first game to me was just like this bugged out
First iteration.
mess of a game. Yeah, it's just
Right.
like one of the worst.
Better and
games I've
better over
played.
time.
Yeah, but like the Bloodborne game it's cool stuff, I don't have time though to play them that much, so I'm mostly like wanting to play them and looking at people playing, or or talking about playing them. So I still like them, but I don't have the stamina, I think, to die all the time. So. But I'd gladly, there's some weird sense, I'd gladly die in a cooperative game. You know, I can wipe the whole team and just play really like hard difficulty, because it's just a different social thing when we're trying something together and sort of trying to beat it together, rather than I'm spending my free time alone getting killed by AI. It's just a very different thing.
Right, there's the whole level of
like
trust in your teammates.
That sounds like playing Destiny for the first time.
Yeah, Destiny.
Going to learn the raids.
Yeah. Oh, if you run into a raid, the first thing you do, that's not. Yeah, that's going to be a different experience. Destiny is really good, I think. Really cool. Bungie know their shit. There's a lot of like broken stuff in there and empty promises and all kinds of shit, but it's.
I still know one place on Mars where I can exit the map, and it is still capable today.
Oh, you are. Oh, that's just. But, you know, like all the boss fights were broken, and some still are, and stuff like that. But I think in general, like just the controller and just shooting somebody is so well executed that you can just keep doing that forever, because it's just a very gratifying, experience. The whole thing, just the feedback and the combat, like the moment-to-moment stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, just collecting weapons and gear is always fun. I think I sort of fall for that every time. Just as long as I don't have to pay for like micros, I'm happy.
That's something I think is kind of lost in the industry the past few years, especially. It's like, this game's really fun, and its graphics aren't as good as this other game, but it's more fun. But the graphics, man,
all people are focused on.
I feel like we've kind of fallen out of that point in the industry where just fun isn't the top priority for a lot of people anymore. It's like, I want to have fun, but there's this whole other checklist the game has to meet before I say I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even pick it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, sort of, I think the big division, isn't it, like, a lot of people play indie games, and most of them look like shit. And then you got some of them that look awesome because they're so well art directed. But most of them focus on the fun, and then some of them deliver on it, of course. But you got that sort of have grown into a different and a separate crowd, I guess. And you still have the sort of art-focused next generation, discussions, of course. If it's not brown, I'm not gonna play it. Like, what was that? Between 2000 and five to 12 or something. Everything was fucking brown. On the other hand, now everything else look like Drake's Fortune. So it's just a moving target, but it's the same fucking.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to look like the best thing they've played, of course.
Nowadays, I think the two things people focus on most are the graphics and character customization.
Yeah.
You'll see stories of people spending 2 to 3 hours just customizing the way their character looks to be the best possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody else who works here at Rusty Chains, his name is Chucky, we recently did a Saints Row 3 stream. We had to extend the stream for an extra hour and a half because he spent the entire time allotted to the stream just customizing his character. He got that into it. And I enjoy games that, let you get really into it with your character customizer, but at the same time, it's not the biggest thing in the world for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky too, because that whole thing sort of limits storytelling, and it limits a bunch of stuff because
Right.
now the player is sort of altering the character he's playing, so you can't really tell a story with that character. So then you end up being sort of in between land where you lock the characters down, the personality of them, but you can still customize them to some extent, and then or just like swap outfits that sort of fit with the character still.
Just not noticing, John. None of us here have medic bags.
For me, it's almost like it depends on the mood,
Yeah.
on the pacing of it.
Mainly
Like if I play Fallout, I'm actually like, no, I'm not gonna use that helmet because it's too ugly. I can't use it, and I'm gonna search for something, more
It
fitting.
doesn't effectively really matter when you can add stats with other things. Guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in like super serious games, where it's like, for example, the WWE games. It's like, here's Hulk Hogan in this corner, and in this corner, it's a green blob with arms just kind of flailing. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Character customizations. I'm going to be the green blob.
Yeah.
The arms flailing. Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of... Yeah, I think you just, as a developer, you just have to pick a direction and do that. Try to maximize on what you think is best for your game and do that, instead of going like for like what's the popular opinion of what the game has to have to work,
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are gonna hate it. Hopefully some people will love it, But like if you're working for working at EA or something, you gotta checkbox all the like latest trends,
Right.
and it just turns into these monsters of games, like what's Massive's game? That was incredibly hyped. Made in Sweden, actually, by Massive.
No Man's Sky?
No. It's
sure.
sort of like a third-person
To Google.
cooperative. It has some
I
deathmatch.
can't think of a project like that.
It's funny that you don't.
Division.
Division, yes. Division. Division is a game that tries to sort of checkbox its way through everything. It tries to have everything, really.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I was really psyched, like I really wanted it. And then when it came out and I saw some like reviews and I saw some playthroughs on YouTube and stuff, I actually never picked it up. But some other guys at the office did and played it for a while, but I think it didn't really deliver on all that.
Right.
Sadly.
And again, that fell back into kind of, this DLC trap.
Yeah.
Because...
But isn't that the games as a service type thing?
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, yeah, we're moving to games as a service. And I like games as a service. It's, I don't know what that means even. What kind of service is that?
The only thing I can think of where games would be a service is if you're trying to deal with it being MMOs.
Yeah, it's not a service if you have to buy stuff to keep playing.
Yeah.
Is it? Really? Or does the game break down like a car and you gotta service it? Like, oh, sorry, your controller broke. Like, you can't walk left. That's gonna cost you $5. And then...
Yeah.
That's a game.
EA, is that you?
That's part of why I don't like MMOs. I personally don't care for them because, most MMOs go on this whole thing about how, like, you're the chosen one or whatever. It's like, here's your story, but then when you show up to save the day, there's literal 200 people already saving. It's like, oh, I guess I'm not so special. And then even when I can get past that, it's like, all right, time to be the hero. That'll be $5, so you can play another month. It's like, oh. Stuff like that, you know, subscription-based games and always online games also bother me a bit.
Yeah.
Especially single-player ones, you know. For example, Just Cause 3. You can... That's a fully single-player game. There's no multiplayer to it. Aside from leaderboards for, you know, best times on this challenge or whatever. And you can't play that unless you're connected to their online servers. So if their servers go offline, you lose your fully single-player experience. And
With Xbox, you have to have Xbox Live Gold with Destiny to do the raids.
yeah. So
That's true.
always online stuff bothers me just because, like, I paid $60 for this game, but there's going to come a day in probably like 4 or 5 years when the developers say, all right, we're done, and then this game just disappears forever.
Yeah. That's also the issue with designing games that are sort of based around master servers and big, like, sort of server, you know, mainframe sort of needs, you know, because if they don't sell enough, they're going to shut down the servers, and then you're sort of, you don't have the thing you paid for.
Yep.
That's just very annoying, I think.
That's why I'm
I think
hesitant
it's
to buy
almost
one of
like,
those types of games.
yeah, I think you almost have to take, maybe you could take like a monthly subscription fee for those types of stuff, but you can't like take an upfront $60 for it, because it's just like, but it's not mine, like, or it's gonna break.
Yeah.
You know?
There's going to be a day in a few years when this is just gone, and where's all the money gone, you know?
Yeah.
To the dev's pocket, most likely.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's kind of... Games like
If
that are
they're
very
using it to
moment.
make more games, then that's fine.
Usually
Also-
the money go on server costs.
That too.
in those cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
There's
best way...
yeah.
I think the best way to do games that have both a single-player experience and a multiplayer experience are, you know, if there's multiplayer, okay, I'll be online for that if I absolutely have to, but single-player, let that be offline. And
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you have both, I mean, it's
yeah,
If you're going to shut down the servers, you should at least try to add in some kind of client hosting.
or peer-to-peer option, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. But what we're looking at right now is more towards like, it's always multiplayer, but it's like a peer-to-peer thing. So you could it doesn't run on a big, you know, server mainframe or anything like that. It doesn't need like matchmaking stuff really. But we're using on PC. We're using Steam, of course. So Steam will hopefully be around for a long time. So the matchmaking will still work.
I don't
Because
see
if Steam
going
disappears, no, neither do I. So I think that's fairly safe bet. Like, and if Steam disappears, we have other problems in this business. So
Yeah.
but it's we're really trying to do something where it's like hopefully you have a group of people you play with and you play the whole game with those guys, you know. And maybe you play it sometimes with a smaller group or just a few of them to sort of get your, you know, get a certain get certain items or get certain, you know, get further in the progression. But like the big sort of experiences or the big challenges are played together with a specific group of people.
Right.
So
especially people you know and can communicate with and work effectively with.
yeah, exactly. And I really like the sort of, you know, idea of talking about it. Like, oh, we're gonna play this this thing on Friday, so we're gonna sort of spend the week planning it, or discussing how to do it, or sort of preparing for it. It's very, very interesting.
Games
And
like
I love doing that myself.
Yeah, games like Dying Light or Borderlands, let's say, those are wonderful games to play with friends, and I only play them with the same few people every time, or else I just don't play. And every time we stop playing, we take a few minutes at the end of the session to say, okay, here are the quests we have in our docket, here's the order we're going to do them when we play next time. We have that plan ready to go.
Yeah. And it's fun. It becomes bigger, like even bigger, like social thing, which is fun, I think. And it's the cooperative also element has a lot of potential that's sort of untapped in those areas, because the big publishers, they don't want to go in there because it's a narrower market, So there's a lot of stuff in there that's very interesting. If you set certain rules and set certain limitations on the game and rules for the player to follow, then you can do a bunch of interesting things. So we're trying to do that. We'll see how that goes. Now we've been ranting for like, I don't know, an hour or what?
Hour and a half? Yeah.
Just about an hour and a half.
Hope you haven't taken too much of your time.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm thinking about there are 48 guys left in that channel, and their ears are sort of rotting off by now. But
they seem to be thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah. What did we begin? I wasn't paying attention.
So yeah, if you have stuff you want to get back to and we're just absorbing all your time, let us know.
No, it's fine. I can stick around for a tad more if you want to.
Yeah, we're good to go as long as you want to go, because it's still early evening for us. Like, it's only 6:30 for me and 3:30 for Jacob here, so...
West Coast, Best Coast.
But thank you for giving us this much of your time. We know you're a busy guy, so...
It's great to have you on.
Yeah. Very insightful.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm sure we're going to have this again in the future when we're getting closer to something, or when we release something interesting to talk about.
Beta or alpha, we play test the game a bit.
You want to write a
Shameless
on
plugs.
any lists, we're not going to stop you.
Oh yeah, something that I think people should do is if you're interested in more information about what we're doing in the future, you got the ambassador program on our site, and it's actually getting close to the amount of people we want to have. So there's like an upper limit to that. So we're going to close that down fairly soon, depending on how quickly we hit that the limit. So it's a limited sort of thing. Yes, it's a service. It's a games as a service. No. We just wanted to have sort of a smaller community of people to talk to, and we're probably going to use that community for like you said, alpha or beta or whatever, if we do an alpha beta, but at least they get the all information, or most information, faster than anybody else. So if people are interested, they should actually subscribe to that before it closes. It's just a tip.
Our guy Rory, would you be so kind as to link that in the stream chat? Haha, we have people for this.
It's nice to have people you can maybe sort of rely on occasionally.
Once in a while, yeah. Someone asks, when do you sleep, Ulf, and why is it now?
I'm actually not planning to sleep right now. It's gonna still be maybe 2 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Keep forgetting your phone.
but yeah, I don't sleep that much actually. It's not my thing. Sleeping is not. I enjoy sleeping, but like it's just a waste of time. Like you can do a bunch of stuff when other people are sleeping. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think of 1 to 3 in the morning as productivity hour.
Yeah. The only problem is like when you hit like that last shit hour that when you don't know really what it is,
Yeah.
then it's you don't know when you hit it. Like you're suddenly like, yeah, it's really everything's going really good, and then suddenly you're like, why isn't anything working? And then you realize, I hit the shit hour, of course.
Yeah, I generally have those moments where it's like, wow, I've gotten so much done. I'm struggling to stay awake. When did that happen?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have jumped down, John.
Parachute out of plane.
Yeah.
You watching?
Yeah, I'm watching.
Don't forget your parachute.
Kane, no.
Kane, yes. Maybe.
One of our little pseudo memes around the Rusty Chains community, if you could even call it that, is the first time we played this heist, my quote-unquote good friend Kane here stole my parachute and let me just jump out the plane without it.
In all fairness, I didn't know it was your parachute.
Because apparently those are designated.
And someone was kind enough to submit us fan art of that. Our first legitimate fan art. So,
yeah,
that was neat. Hashtag John Splat is my Twitter background because of it. So.
Well, technically second legitimate fan art.
Was that the second one?
This is the Hogan stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That we didn't even mean to do. It just happened. We were bored. Because that's how most of this stuff happens.
Yeah. I've noticed, especially in games too, when memes spawn from games, the people that design the games don't really intend for it.
There's a lot of sentry guns.
Like
all suppressed.
An example being Portal with the Valve games.
Yeah.
The final battle of Portal has like these little rolling bots that kind of roll all over the field while you're trying to fight. And Valve's like, these are going to be our meme for Portal 1. And that's the cake. And no one remembers those robots ever.
Wait, I thought Hoopy was supposed to be the Portal meme.
Yeah, exactly. He was supposed
Hoopy
to be...
wasn't a robot. Hoopy was a hoop.
Oh,
Hey, wow.
That's
close enough. But, you know, like, Valve's like, we're going to make a meme out of this. And then the
Yeah, but you-
community just goes, but cake.
Where do I put the ladder?
But isn't that like the definition of a meme? Like you can't really plan for it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it just happens.
It is an idea.
Yeah, because then it's no longer a meme, I guess.
It's just a joke.
Or then it's just like marketing.
Yeah.
What do I do with this ladder? Why did I pick it up?
Sorry, dudes, but well, I'm looking at you playing, and it looks like you're playing with God mode on all the time.
It's probably
There's
just dodge
like-
build.
Dudes,
We are also
shoot-
playing on low difficulty.
Yeah, I'm playing the dodge build, so I can just weave between bullets, and we're also on the lowest difficulty, so we can just
okay.
banter without thinking about the game really at all.
I will say the dodge build is not as god mode-y as it used to be.
It's true.
It used to be you could dodge 95% of all bullets, no
Yeah.
matter what. They've definitely balanced it out. It's the actual term this time.
That's interesting.
Do you guys have kind of skill sets like that in your game where there's always that chance of the unpredicted combo? Like, if I stack this skill with this skill, I suddenly have 200% crit chance or something ridiculous like that.
There's somewhat that kind of stuff, but it's more geared towards if you're going to do any stacking, you're going to have to do it as a team, rather than individually.
Right.
So you gotta have to work together. Again, everything is just like as cooperative as we can make it without making it too complicated.
Like you want to be able to stand on your own, but also be able to support the team.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to have fun at the same time, or like, you know, feel like you're actually contributing by yourself. But like, if you play together, you're gonna be so much more dangerous in general. That's the idea.
God, what is going on, Sean?
I thought I could make the jump to the car. That was false.
I think that was me rubbing off on you this time. He's got you, friendly man. But he was at... Hang on. He was down for 12 seconds. Why did he go into custody? He still had a good 13 on his screen. I'm confused.
There's a question for you guys in chat. Will your game have a skill system? Kind of like RPGs, you know, you level up, spec a skill, etc., etc.
I can't, like, we're still sort of feeling around and trying stuff out, but like there's going to be some progression in the game. Like you're gonna have to I mean, you're going to get better and better at certain things, and you're going to find stuff, and I mean, it has those elements to it. It's not a RPG game, but it has, you know, some
At this point, I bet it's still fairly up in the air on that kind of stuff.
It is, but it, like, you know, there's certain things that you want to have in the game that we're making. But since I can't tell you what game I'm making in that detail, it's really hard to answer that question. But yes, most definitely there's some sort of like level up type system. Like you get better, and you
right,
and you get to make choices basically. And we're going to try to make that more of a group thing. Like what I pick and you pick is directly linked, you know.
So I assume it would be relatively easy to swap on the fly and not really locked into it.
Not necessarily. It depends on what you mean on the fly, but
right, like not every 2 seconds, obviously, but like at the start of a mission or so, maybe just like this and this, and you take that.
Yeah, I mean, since it's a multiplayer game,
yeah,
doing too like rigid decisions isn't really working, because if somebody drops out, you got to be able to adapt somewhat to that. For example, or if you lose somebody, and it's a team thing. So if somebody dies in the team or gets, you know, taken out, then still got to be able to sort of complete it. Because I think the best sort of drama comes from almost failing, you know. So you can't be total shit by yourself. So yeah, you got to be able to switch somewhat, you know, or sort of adapt your strategy to something else that sort of works with the stuff you picked. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit tricky to design, but it's but it's fun to design at the same time.
Just like if you've got a medic build, say, and then all your teammates are dead.
Yeah, it's harder, right? I mean, yeah.
So you've got a build that's decided to kill the small things, and then something big comes around the corner, you're out of ammo.
And throws you like a football, and then it's just like...
Oh, okay.
I guess
this
I'm
happens
dead now. And speaking of that drama you're talking about of almost failing, that just happened on stream. 3 of us are dead and 1 escaped at critical health. So
Yeah.
And yet we're still being supported for doing a great job, quote unquote.
Less mouths to feed, I guess. Whoa. Flamey faced person won the game. Yay!
I'm looking over chat trying to find any questions, but they're more discussing memes at this point.
Yep.
I think we've killed them.
Yep.
How many missions are there now in Payday 2? Someone asks. I want to say 48. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I've lost track. So do you have any more questions?
Um, I'm gonna just dip into Reddit again. The only one that really hasn't been answered already from the Reddit thread is when you make games, do you then say, wow, that's really, really fun, I'm going to go back and play that, you know? Like earlier you said, or you talked about how you make games that you would want to play. So do you spend like all day at the office and then just go home and play the test build for fun?
It's tricky, you know, because
It could be difficult to do.
you spend like all the time on it, and usually, you know, depends on where in the project you are. You gotta play it. You gotta play it, and you gotta make something that you can play, because then you can actually feedback on it like a gamer, you know, instead of like if you're making a single player story driven game, it's really hard to feedback on it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, other than from a directional standpoint, but like as a gamer, it's not really fair because you know all the details, you know. That's why they're so hard to make those types of games. I mean, different games have different obstacles, of course. Like cooperative games are really hard too, and then deathmatch are extremely hard to make good. But I end up not playing them as much. I think Payday is the one I've played the most, especially Payday 1. You know, I to this day haven't played most of the Grim games I made over there. Of course, Ghost Recon, I played that. Like Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 1 is something I've played a lot at the office and afterwards too. But yeah, it's tricky, you know. You make them so you can play them. You make something you understand and something you would like to play, and so you can take the right decisions, you know. And you can play it at the office and have fun with it, of course. But like you don't, like when you're done, you hate the game so much, you know.
It's kind of like how I am. I cannot at all watch these streams back.
I can.
Whatsoever. I hate listening to my own voice.
Yeah. I mean, it's and you move on to the next thing. You've already, you know, half a year or a year before I actually complete a game, I'm completely like into the next one in my head. Like I get bored so quickly. That's what like my biggest weakness is. I get bored. You know, it's really hard to sort of stay on the stay focused on the same project. But I, you know, with age, I develop sort of ways of dealing with that. But it's still, still pretty tricky, you know,
Mhm.
because I have at least every other day I have a new game design in my head for a completely different game. And it might be shit, but it's like some of them are really good, and you sort of, you know, 1 in 100 might be awesome, you know, and you sort of like, fuck me, I want to make this now. I don't want to make this shit, and you sort of, you know, my worst experience has been, you know, Bionic Commando was a fucking horror to make because I knew it was gonna suck pretty early on, and I had to spend another 2.5 years on it, you know. Or at least 2, I'd say. I knew it sucked a year in, and it was 2 years left. You know, it's like a creative prison, you know.
Mhm. A teacher I once had said to me, people that create hate, or 80% of people that create hate everything they did more than 5 years ago, and the other 20% are liars.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say 5 years is a bit long. Like, I'd say, you know, as soon as you're done, you hate it.
A friend who does coding for Microsoft servers, and he says some of the stuff he did 5 years ago doesn't even make logical sense to him anymore.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, but I think it's also, if you strive to make better stuff, you always hate the last thing you did, because that's the way of moving, you know, sort of you've set another goal, a new higher standard for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of have to hate the stuff you've made, you know. You're happy a couple of hours. On the release party, you could be happy, you know, if you have a party. And then you're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah. Like that's
There's always...
That's something we do here to a very, very small extent. You know, we stream 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, and every day after we stream, we're like, hey, that was a good stream. So what are we doing tomorrow? You know, it lasts maybe 5 minutes once the button goes off.
Yeah. It's tricky. You just gotta love the process of it, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not about the goal as much as the just living that and doing that thing all the time. Yeah. That's very true.
Are you safe? That was an interesting sound.
No, I just heard noises in the house and I had to take up the headset.
So
and
you're
find out
not
what they were.
safe.
No, it's just my brother.
His maiming, murdering brother. He didn't mention that. I haven't seen it.
I mean, he is soul stealing.
I thought he was in for life.
No, he's a ginger. He's got to steal my soul first. Shotgun.
It's like half Hulk Hogan and half cocaine right now, and I don't know why either of these things are being mentioned. So, unless anyone has any more questions, ... Yeah, it looks like we've about exhausted our pool of questions, and chat's not...
And content.
Yep. With his big hands. What the fuck?
What?
I don't have big hands. Bastard.
So, I guess are we done then?
I mean, there's nothing else much to do. Oh, James is dead.
Who needs
Will there be a heavily support-oriented character in subcommunity game? Now there's more questions. Yeah. Well, let's do this another...
Questions.
Yeah. They're always going to have something.
Yeah.
But let's do this again sometime.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun
Yeah.
and very, very insightful. It was nice to get a look at someone with a very different philosophy on game development than people we've had on before, and that's interesting to see, more sides of it.
Yeah.
I think I'm less
Wait,
of
Sam the
a.
Flygon has a...
What is his question?
I don't know. He's saying, wait, I have a question.
What does Logan want?
Actors.
So what's the next American president?
That is still as of yet undecided. We have 2 choices right now. Maybe a third
know.
if people get smart.
Unrelated question, except it's entirely related. What are rent prices in Sweden right now?
Rent prices.
And how long does it take to get citizenship?
Yeah.
Or are we picking at the? You're just picking back at me, you motherfucker.
No, I just
You're
don't
like-
want either of the presidential candidates. They're all terrible. Save me.
Well, agreed.
Yeah.
That's just a big fucking mess. Anyway.
All right.
Oh, that's a parkouring cop. That was cool.
I think the mystical flying cops are better, but yeah.
Flying cops.
Yeah.
If
on
you've
this-
played,
on this heist, they
what
sometimes
is it?
jump between the 2 rooftops and then decide to just stop mid-jump, so they'll just kind of hang out up
No,
there for a
I'm
while.
talking about the old patch days with what was it? Framing frame, where you would be going to you would be going back and forth between the vantage point, and sometimes cop would just be floating on the zip wire.
You would have to zip line across to another building to get an idea of
sniper
what's
position.
going on, a sniper position. And then sometimes the cop will just go like, hey, what's that? And just walk across the space between the buildings and arrive
Like
at
some-
the vantage point.
Trapeze, or no, not trapeze, tightrope walker.
Yeah.
With desync, he would also end up being, I don't know, 20 or 30 feet to the left or right of the wire.
Yeah. That was a mess.
Alright, Sam the Flygon's question was, have you ever met any of the voice actors for Payday 2? In
Well,
real life?
2 of them. Of course. That's
One
me
point.
and Simon, of course. But let me think. I don't think I have. I'm not sure. Maybe one of them at
I
some
think-
party
I don't know.
and
I'm not sure. I
States,
thought Pete
but,
Gold might have been a little more social than some of them.
yeah, it's me that's not social. Like, yeah, well, I was part of. I designed the game and designed Payday 1 and 2, and then did the whole production thing. But I was actually out of it like just before release, and then I sort of, when I got my senses back, because some shit happened, I
Right.
sort of saw the whole sort of success and everything sort of not at the office, from home. So I missed out on most of the sort of post development stuff. So I had to see the whole DLC stuff unravel before me from home. That was a different experience. But so I haven't. I don't think I've met those guys. No, maybe one, maybe Pete, but I'm not sure.
Alright, so I guess if that's it, we're going to wrap up there.
Yep.
And thank you again for joining. It's been a blast. Let's for sure do this again sometime.
Yeah. I'm sorry I'm not like super intense and plugging stuff. It's not what I do, so it's a bit.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it.
It can get boring at times.
It's nice to get a little slowed down and pace every so often.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But thanks for having me, man. And
Thank you.
see you later.
Thanks to everybody that watched. There's
Yeah.
quite a few of you guys. We will be back tomorrow with our standard Friday podcast. And of course, don't forget to check out everything Ulf's doing over at 10 Chambers. Sign up for that ambassador program. Only a few slots left. ... And, of course, stay tuned with that, because it sounds like there's some really, really cool stuff coming. We will see you guys next time, and until then, have a nice night and stay rusty.